Hey, coming to you live from WRUE, it's the Scribbling Women.
Hi, I'm Nancy Rue. I'm a scribbling woman, and so are you. That's why we're having this conversation. Here we talk about the writerly life that is unique to you, no matter your age, your life season, or where you are in your writing career, even if you think you don't have one yet. So let's chat. All right, I want you to imagine that you are back in high school, if you can bear it, and raise your hand if, when Mrs. Mind Number or Mr. Hey, I'm here to pump you up about Shakespeare, pointed to something that the class had just read and said, what is the meaning of this? What is the theme? Why? Why did they put us through that? Jim, my husband, the one you always hear at the beginning of the episode, he tells the story of being in about ninth or 10th grade where the class spent 6 weeks dissecting the Lord of the Flies. When we told our grandchild that story, who was at that point 11 years old, they said, oh, is that the one where all those boys from a school go on a field trip and then they get stranded on an island with no grown-ups and in about 2 weeks they all go feral? Yes, that's the one. Yeah, well, that's not realistic. That would happen in about 10 minutes. So why is it? Why is it that teachers of literature made us dissect all the psychological underpinnings of the Scarlet Letter? Basically, it was very clear that the Puritans were sadists, or put a Shakespearean sonnet in front of students, knowing full well that none of those guys who were staring at that hot chick on the front row were comparing her to a summer's day. It's that. It's that we look back on and say, oh, why? All right, let's fast forward then a couple of years, and your marvelous book, novel, short story collection, book of essays has been placed before students in a high school class. The teacher, who is fresh out of Swarthmore College or whatever, perches on the end of the desk in her combat boots and her long flowy skirt and says to the class, what is the author saying here? And suddenly you want them to get it. You want them to think about that, not go through there and delineate the intention of every comma, but you want them to know and to feel something that you put in them to experience as never before. We wrote it because we wanted someone emerging from its pages to know or feel something they didn't know before. So in this episode, we're going to dream of what that is for you, that knowing, that feeling. The best way that I can describe that is one Sunday, the priest was getting ready to preach her homily, and she said, I only have one sermon. The brush stroke that I want to add to it today is, and of course I immediately made the application to writing, and to be honest, I'm pretty sure I never heard the rest of the message. But what if everything that we write, everything that you individually write, is a masterpiece to which, with this story, you add a few brushstrokes. With that essay, you paint a corner. With that poem, you add a little bit of shading. That is what you mean to say in everything you write. Okay, let's way fast forward. And everyone is gathered at a memorial service for you. Did I mention that you're dead in this particular scenario? And everyone who gets up to talk about you says the same thing. She stood for this. She embodied this. She lived that belief that this. And everybody in the room is nodding. Wives are whispering to their husbands, didn't I always tell you that about her? People who were mere acquaintances are thinking, you know what? That is definitely her. Okay, let's fast backward. We only visited that maudlin scene to show you that whatever fills in that blank, that tells us the basic meaning of everything that we write. So kind of think of it instead of a masterpiece painting as an umbrella under which all of our life message gathers, all of the pieces of it. Let me give you an example from my own experience. In all of the fiction that I've written, all of the nonfiction, the blogs, the posts, the workshops I've taught, the communities I've gathered, in all of those 43 years, everything has come under the umbrella of authenticity. And not just be who you were meant to be, because I could have covered that in one short story. There's so many facets to that I'm still exploring, a myriad of challenges. It's a long process, and I'm still delving into that in book number 128. I hold that umbrella because I struggled with that so much as a kid. And my entire adult life has been devoted to figuring out who I am and watching other people in that same struggle. So I spin all of my stories around new messages that come up to me along the way under the umbrella of authenticity. That's what I share on social media. That's what I'm using as a foundation for these podcasts, finding your own unique writerly life. That's what I mean when I write. Now, before we dream about yours, I want us to look at the practical side for a minute. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being your head is going to explode, how much do you hate it when someone from publishing or someone who's teaching a workshop says, "What is your platform? You need to have a platform." Okay, that is fine for nonfiction and even for some really agenda-driven fiction. But what the Sam Hill is a platform for a fiction author? What are the planks of a beautiful literature? Well, I used to be a 5 on that scale, and like most Scribblies, one among us, Janai May, author and web designer, she said this: "I trust a review less if there's an obvious platform involved, because everything feels forced and staged." Of course, you can't try to get away with saying, "I write great novels" under the platform section of a proposal. That's a kiss of death for your project. And besides, publishing companies have to know what your platform is for marketing purposes. Agents need that in order to sell it to editors. Salespeople need to know where it goes on the shelves. So even though the word platform might prickle like a case of shingles, let them do what they have to do. In our lane, we're just carrying a gorgeous parasol or a giant golf umbrella, defining who we are and what we're about as writers. The platform is your umbrella. It's the foundational truth everything you write is built on, even fiction, especially fiction. So what exactly does that look like? Well, it could be a word. In my case, authenticity. Yours could be courage or overcoming or shadows. Maybe it's a basic statement. You are enough. There's magic all around us for people who are willing to seek it. Everyone has a dragon inside them that can be tamed. Or you could even think of it as a mandate of sorts. Social justice is everyone's responsibility, or keep loving or your soul will die. Now, there are those Scribblies who balk at the idea of pinning down to one message. What if they want to experiment? What if they want to look at a lot of different themes? What if what you land on today changes in 6 months? Well, yeah, lives are ever-changing landscapes, but the earth beneath them is always the same. Yeah, the message grows, but what if you start off with something like, "You can't trust anyone but yourself," and everything you write reflects that. And then your life experience changes that to, "You have to trust something beyond yourself." Your basic theme, what you mean, is still about trust. If you're feeling restricted by that, you might want to think of it this way. You know those department stores where all of the garments are divided by designer, like Macy's or Dillard's? You can walk in there and feel so overwhelmed trying to find something to wear that you either leave without nothing, Or you buy a bunch of stuff. When you get home, you look in the mirror and go, what was I even thinking? But what if you entered Dillard's and said, today I'm going to find me a great pink sweater. And as you look around, you only let your eye fall on pink fuzziness. Now, that doesn't mean that if you find a great, smashing, stunning pair of gray tweed pants, that you don't snatch them up immediately. But you're also probably going to find about 12 sweaters in all sizes and shapes and shades. You see what we're talking about. So the freedom that is in limitation doesn't really limit you. It opens up the possibilities. If courage, for example, is your word, you can probably right now think of 10 different stories you could tell about courage. You could come up with about 5 poems. You could write about a dozen essays on all of the various aspects, the facets of courage. Now, what if you don't have a clue what your umbrella is? Well, I promise you it's there. That meaning that you want to express is dancing around in your life. It's just kind of tough to embody something when your kids are hanging on you like there's Velcro involved, right? It's hard to land on something when everybody and everything is telling you who to be, from your boss to your mother to the pop-up ads on the internet. Well, there's no right to it. There's no trends to investigate. It will come to you. So why not ask yourself some questions that you might dream on? Just dream on them, as we've been talking about in this whole season. For instance, what makes you cry into your pillow? What makes you want to spit or throw your grandmother's china across the room, teacup by teacup? What niggles at you when you're trying to sleep? What makes you want to do the happy dance in the cookie aisle at the Kroger? What would absolutely devastate you if it were taken from you? What are the values that come into play when you're trying to make a hard decision? What has stood between you and feeling at home with yourself? What would your perfect day look like? And what keeps that from being a reality? Again, don't push this. Just dream it. It's not pushing toothpaste back into the tube. Just take the questions out for sushi or an ice cream, or ponder them when you're catching up on that ironing. I mean, some people actually do iron. Or just wait. Just let this float around in your mind, and your spirit will pull it all together. And you'll discover your umbrella waiting over there in the corner like Father Brown's brolly. Hopefully, no high school junior will ever roll her eyes when her English teacher asks for the overarching theme of your novel or your epic poem. Surely, she'll just know it in her soul because you did. Because you dreamed it and you're living it. And it could very well be that that's what they'll say about you at your funeral. We always end with a scribbling nudge. And this week, I'd like to propose this. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you ponder, what influence do I want to have on my audience? And then in one of those rare alone moments in a woman's life, just dream on that. If you want to share that or anything else about your writerly life, please visit www.nancyrude.com/blog. And until next time, Scribblies, scribble on.